I'm sure you've spent countless of hours thinking about which workflow automation tool to use for your specific use case. Is it n8n? Is it Make? Is it Zapier? And which one is the best option for you in 2025? Because the wrong option could lead you to very high workflow costs and also very high restrictions in terms of if you want to scale your process or build a lot of automations for your business. So we've helped solve this for all of our clients. We've worked with tens of clients globally like UK Oncology and BarkBox to really help implement AI and automation in the processes and save them hundreds of hours by doing so. So let's dive straight into it and see which one is the best option for you in 2025. Is it n8n? Is it Make? Or is it Zapier? So first, I want to cover what these tools actually do and why are they so useful for people who are trying to automate their workflows. So how it worked before is before you had these tools, you had to go to the specific SaaS tools API documentation. An API documentation is basically a guide on how you can connect this specific app to another software or database or anything else. So what you had to do is go through the API documentation, find the right API call, and then set everything up manually. And then once you had that set up, you actually had to host it yourself as well and do all of these tedious tasks that you don't have to do with these tools. So these tools make it really easy for you to build an automation and just push live and then everything works, and also taking care of all the maintenance and everything else for you. Obviously not maintenance of your own workflow, but maintenance of keeping everything up and running. So the first tool really that I want to talk about is Zapier. So Zapier is going to be your best option when you're a complete beginner or you're very early in the stages of automating your processes. So Zapier is a really good option because it has a lot of pre-built connections. Over 7,000. You can create an automation very simply and it's very easy to use and they take care of everything for you. So just going into Zapier, what you want to do is you want to log in or create an account for yourself, start a new Zap. So Zap is something that they call an automation workflow or a workflow. And what you want to do here is just choose a trigger for yourself, choose a specific action that has to happen after your trigger has triggered. And also, if you want any other steps in here, you can add them and also filters. So as you can see, it's quite intuitive to a degree at least to use and to set up automations and start working with it. Now, really, Zapier does have cons as well. And what the cons are that the cost scales really quickly. So this means that, for example, if you have a lot of automations, if you compare it with other platforms, then they're going to charge you for each specific step. So in that example that I showed before, there was 3 steps or 2 steps actually. And in there, they would charge you per each step. And that step is quite expensive compared to other platforms. So as I mentioned before, you really need to decide which one you want to go for based on how much you think you're going to automate and also how complex are the workflows going to be. So it's something simple, it's okay, but generally the cost is very high when you have a lot of automations running, and that's why also there are a lot of freelancers and people who help with this transitioning, let's say for example from Zapier to another tool or from another tool to even a third tool. So and in terms of like restrictions, there are some restrictions as well that we found. We personally do not implement Zapier for any of our clients because we find it very limiting and it's also going to be very cost intensive as there are a lot of automations that we build for our clients. So it wouldn't simply make sense as a return on investment to implement these things in Zapier. The next option that I want to talk about is Make.com. Make.com has actually been our internal favorite for a very long time, and that is before this next tool came out that I'm going to talk about. And why is it so good is that it's very intuitive compared to Zapier, for example. Like this to me honestly feels very clunky, and it takes just so much time to build these workflows. And with Make.com, it's very intuitive, and I will show you in a second what that looks like. So it's very intuitive. The downside is that there are some restrictions in there, which are for example, that you don't have as much pre-built connections in there. So for example, let's say that Slack might have a connection on Zapier, but they might not have it on Make. So you would need to go into the API documentation and figure everything out for yourself. But how Make.com works is that it's very intuitive, in my opinion. So you're just able to, add this in here. You're able to add this workflow in here. And it's very simple to build and also very easy to understand kind of what is going on. Obviously, it's relative. For some people, it's not. For some people, it is. But to me personally, I feel like this is way more intuitive. And also, if you wanted to build a workflow in here, but you didn't want to use Make.com, but you wanted to, you know, maybe use ChatGPT or Claude or anything else to build this workflow for you, you could actually do that as well. Because the way you do this is, let's say I built the workflow in here, I'm able to export that blueprint, and I'm able to share this with other people as well. So that's a very handy thing in here. And also I'm able to import blueprint, which is basically this automation workflow, but just in code. So it's very easy to build it externally as well, import it in here, and then deploy it so that it works. There are definitely cons with Make.com as well. It's going to be a bigger learning curve compared to Zapier, definitely, as it's more flexible. And I've also heard people say that to test workflows, for example, which is really handy in Zapier, is that you're able to set this up and then you're able to test run it. So it gives you these records. But in Make.com, for example, what you would have to do is you would have to run this whole workflow and kind of test it more manually. So it doesn't have those sessions. Like, you still record those previous runs in terms of when you run a workflow, but it wouldn't be so easy to retrieve them. You would have to rerun them. So it's kind of technical, but in terms of like testing workflows, I would say that, yeah, Zapier is definitely way more handy. And in Make.com, you gotta know your way around to test these workflows, and not basically run the whole workflow if you have hundreds of hundreds of different modules in here, for example, in a row. So, and also another issue that we run into, or we ran into actually, is when you build very large workflows, they tend to get very, very slow. So if you can imagine, for example, this workflow that I showed, but double it by or multiply it by 20, then that's going to be very slow and you're not able to build very large workflows on there. So that's going to be a downside as well. It depends on if you want to separate your workflows, right? So if you have a very large workflow, then ideally you'd want to separate it into different branches. So if you're going to do that, that's going to add more complexity. So might not be the best option for you if that's not going to be very comfortable for you. And if you're really enjoying this video, hit the subscribe button. I will be making more of these breakdowns on which workflow automation software you should be using. Also, different things that we implement for our clients, like really in-depth breakdowns of how we actually automate workflows and all that good stuff. So so if you're interested in that, definitely subscribe, as I'll be making weekly videos and breaking down even more interesting stuff that could really be helpful for you. So this is the breakdown of Make.com. I think it's a really good option, really good middle ground between the next option that I'm going to show you and Zapier that I already talked about. So what is the next and best workflow automation tool that I personally recommend when you're more advanced, you want really flexible and good solution? So n8n is going to be the best option for that, and I will explain exactly why that is. So n8n is going to be the most flexible, but also the most complex out of all of these tools that I just described today. And it's going to be the perfect solution for when you want to build a lot of complicated automations, run a lot of custom stuff in there, and also potentially self-host it. And why self-hosting is really interesting is because how the previous platforms worked is that they would charge you for every like operation or like part of the automation. So for example, let's say you have 3 steps in the automation, you would be charged for this separately, right? So depending on how many of these steps you have in your workflow, it would charge you a significant amount. Whereas with n8n, it charges you based on executions. So let's say that you have 100 steps in your automation and you run it 10 times. For this last tool, it would charge you per every step times 10. But in n8n, you would only be credited for basically for this execution, right? And in terms of pricing, it's quite affordable as well. So 2.5K workflow executions. So for Zapier, it could be, for example, 2.5, or in Make, it could be 2.5K operations, or it could be 2.5K operations, or let's say workflow steps for 20 euros per month. So it's quite a significant difference in pricing. And one quick tip I can give you as well is that if you want to even decrease this cost that is in here and you have a lot of workflows, let's say you want to run 40K, then you can even self-host n8n, which is going to be way cheaper. It could be anything from 10 to 20 bucks per month, and you're able to build a lot of stuff in there without having to worry about any limits. So that's why we really like n8n as well, is it's very cost effective for our clients and it's very flexible in terms of what you can build there. So one of the workflows that I want to show you is a pre-meeting agenda automation. So what it does is that it gets information from the database and then it starts to generate a pre-meeting agenda. And what this does is, for example, this AI module in here, or AI node, is connected to different tools. So we have these different tools connected in here, and we're able to run this and get that context into n8n. If I wanted to do this, for example, in make.com or Zapier, I would have to build a way more complex workflow for this just to execute like this simple automation. Like it's not that difficult. It's quite straightforward and simple, but I would have to spend like significantly more time in architecting this on other platforms as opposed to doing it in here. So it does have a more simplistic effect depending on how you view it, but this could come in really handy when you're building complex workflows and you need to connect a lot of different data sources. And also, one of the very good features of n8n as well is its AI agent capability. So building AI agents is very straightforward and made really simple in here. So in that sense, it's also more simplistic, but it does have quite a learning curve. So definitely, when you're going to first use n8n, you're gonna have a hard time with getting to know how everything works and how you can execute these workflows and how you can set them up in the most efficient way. But at the same time, there are also a lot of pre-built workflows that you can use and take from n8n forms, which you can use to um, start building workflows. A con also is depending on what you like as UI or user experience. It's maybe not that straightforward as make.com, but it's definitely something that you can get used to once you start learning more of it. So internally, we definitely recommend n8n as one of the options for most of our clients. We're able to build a lot of complex workflows, a lot of simple, straightforward workflows in there as well. And our clients are saving a significant amount of money as well, which is only a good thing when we're building these things on n8n. So I would personally really recommend using n8n. If you're able to learn fast, you're able to get a grip of n8n. It's a really good and powerful solution, and also it's going to be very cost effective for you if you do decide to self-deploy it. But even if you don't want to self-deploy it or self-host it for that matter, then it's still going to be a way cheaper option than the other ones. If you're tired of thinking which workflow automation you should be using, what can you automate, and what should you automate in your business, then definitely book a discovery call with me and my team. I'll leave a link to the description below this video where I can personally walk you through examples of what we built for our clients and what would be most useful and practical for your specific use case. And if you're really into AI workflows, building stuff with AI, then I'll leave a link to a video that I just did where I walk through how you can use JSON context profiles to increase the quality of the output that the LLMs are giving you in your AI workflows. It's a very interesting video. We've been using JSON context profiles a lot for all of our clients to really improve the output. So if you're interested, go check that out. It's a really valuable video.